This is the Electrom 1. It's part bicycle, part motorcycle, all awesome. There's some pretty interesting engineering that goes into this. So I'm gonna try to ride this today and not kill myself and see if college me would be impressed. I'm Ricky, this is the Electrom 1, and this is the Fully Charged Show.
The Fully Charged Show is generating positive energy with its live events all around the world. Next up, it's Fully Charged Live Canada. Click the top right of the screen to get your tickets today.
So what happens on the Electrom is we have what's called the generator chain drive, or GCD. The rider pedals at the cranks, their energy is sent down to a transfer hub via chain, and at that transfer hub, it is split. It goes to the back wheel via chain and to a separate onboard generator also via chain. What this does is it allows the rider to pedal continuously generating electricity and not have to shift through any bicycle gears to match their human output to the speed of the motor.
So as an engineer, I always like to see something new and figure out why. Why is it the way it is? Let's see if we can't figure out some of the design of the Electrom 1. First of all, the most striking feature is that long wheelbase. This is a really long vehicle, and that's what lends itself to that recumbent or feet forward design language. And that's really important because a bicycle is not particularly aerodynamic. You can imagine how tall the rider is. It's a huge frontal area that's just getting hit with wind. And that's why most bicycles aren't particularly aerodynamic, but this really is. Plus, this polycarbonate cover really helps move the air around the rider as opposed to being colliding with, especially as your knees are moving up and down and all the other stuff. Makes for a very dirty wake around the rider. But this cleans a lot of that up. And it even has mirrors and actually works really well. But one of the interesting things about this is how you get in. You get in front of the controls. Still feels a little odd, but the key really, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, is to accept that this is a feet forward or recumbent bike, that you got to lean into it. When I first got on, I was riding like this, and I was trying to like T-Rex it. It wasn't working out very well. As soon as I kind of got my feet up and put my back more into the seat, then the controls felt right about where they should be, and the lean and the other dynamics and characteristics of the bike started to make more sense. There's not that much weight on the front wheel, so at low speeds, you don't have as much turning authority. That kind of picks up after about 5 kilometers an hour, 10, and you start to get to lean and everything else. But with the good throttle controls, it's not all that bad. According to Fabrizio, he says you need about 20 hours to really get comfortable on this thing, which makes me feel a lot better because I've been on it for about 1 or 2, and I'm getting about 85% comfortable, I'd say, but there's still a little more to go. Let's take a look around back. So this whole seat, by the way, carbon fiber, and Fabrizio does all of this himself, custom layups and all of that. The seat, really comfortable foam. You can sit in this thing for quite a while. The mesh back means you don't get a sweaty back. You get pretty decent airflow coming through, and it's a really nice seat. Now back here, there's actually a tail box, is what they call it. All carbon fiber. We'll get to why that is important in a second. But you have room for quite a bit of stuff. I think the smaller non-bubble version has maybe 80 liters of capacity, and the bigger one has 120, which is more than enough room for groceries and other stuff. Plus, if you empty everything out, you even have room for legs and a little seat for a small rider, like a child or something, if you wanted to do that. And there's even a little cable to be able to add an extra battery for even longer range. This will do about 200 kilometers at 30 kilometers per hour. But if you want to go 50 or 60, obviously you're gonna get less range, but you could add more batteries if you wanted to. Speaking of batteries, this has about 3.8 kilowatt hours of batteries between the two packs that are mounted around here, and they're mounted really low. And this gets to probably the most important engineering design consideration for a bike like this, and that is weight distribution. This bike weighs about 150 pounds, but it's incredibly easy to manipulate. It feels incredibly light. Anybody can move this. I can move this with just a couple of fingers. Unlike a motorcycle. The average motorcycle is about this tall, and it weighs about 500 pounds, 400 to 500, with the big gas engine and transmission, fuel tank, and everything else. I used to joke that on my sport bikes that I used to ride, like my Honda CBR 600RR, there's about a 5 or 10 degree lean angle that you can pull off without losing control. After about 10 or 15 degrees, the bike is just too heavy to control. And that's because of that high center of gravity. But unlike on a sport bike, this has an incredibly low center of gravity. The motors, the batteries, most of the frame is all below the rider, more in line with the axis of the wheels. And that's really important. All of this, very lightweight. This is carbon fiber. This is all carbon fiber, and the entire tail box is carbon fiber. So everything that sits above the chassis here is really, really lightweight. And that's what gives it that really nice control. You can easily tilt this, and it makes for a very surprisingly pleasant riding experience. Okay, so being a recumbent bike does pose some challenges like stopping and starting, getting on and off, right? Your feet up like this. How does that work? Well, there's a brilliant little footrest right here. You push it down, push the whole bike over center, and now get a nice little comfortable place to be while you wait for a red light or something else. How about starting back up again? Equally simple. Because that mechanism isn't so long, it can be overcome just with the power of the motors. So, light turns green, and you're off. So one of the things I think is the most surprising about this ride so far is how comfortable the suspension is. Honestly, way more like a motorcycle than it is a bicycle. It has a lot of travel. Let's get around here. A lot of travel, just kind of soaks up the road, feels pretty nice and planted. Doesn't hurt to have a nice cushioned seat as well. God, Vancouver is gorgeous. Fully charged show, Vancouver, September. Get your tickets, links in the description. What's really nice is a good riding cadence is like maybe 80 RPM, right? I can just stick that and stay right around there and go as fast as I want. For example, I'm not tied to the speed. I can pedal at 80 RPM and go as fast as I want, which is super, super cool. And by the way, this has regenerative braking too. So when I hit the brakes, the early part of the brake pedal actually engages the regenerative braking system, which is really nice because this weighs 150 pounds. And unless you want to be changing brake pads all the time, that's a really nice feature. And it adds range, of course, and we love that here. So my first question before agreeing to hop on this bike was about the tires, because I didn't really trust regular bicycle tires. But good news, this has more like motorcycle tires, and it's really nice and thick, and it gives you that little extra in terms of confidence on the road. Let's talk controls. Really simple. You have two hands here. On the right hand, we have our throttle, which is really nice and well dialed in. The throttle mapping, it makes it pretty nice. You can dial in exactly what you need to get started, up hills, down hills, get a little extra speed to pick up if you're kind of feel like you're leaning over. Really nicely done. You also have the rear brake here on the right hand. Now, switching over to the left hand, we have the front brake right here, control for the light switch right there, and an indicator for turning your blinkers on. Now this is interesting because e-bikes don't actually require that, but because this is kind of in the middle of a motorcycle and an e-bike and they kind of balance that pretty well, it has it. Left, right, and of course, a little horn. So from the rider's perspective, you got your rear view mirrors, work pretty well. And this control right up here shows your pack voltage, how far you've driven, 46 kilometers, your current speed, and it even has this indicator here for when the brakes are applied. There's a little magnetic switch. You can hear that trigger, and it tells you when the brakes are applied. There's a lot of logic going on to make this as safe as possible. For example, if a brake is engaged like this, the throttle does nothing. It won't actually give you anything. So the one tricky thing is on hills and stuff, you got to kind of find your balance and let go of the brake and turn the throttle kind of to get that balance of factors. But by and large, they've kind of thought through the design of everything, and everything's very accessible and easy to reach. All right, I spent the last 4 hours with the Electrom 1, and I've had some really good fun. 2 things I've learned. 1, Vancouver is absolutely gorgeous. And 2, this does make a ton of sense for most city centers. 200 kilometers of range with 3.8 kilowatt hours of battery pack. That's just impressive. There's a couple other fun facts too. For example, most of these components are commercial off the shelf, and Electrom is really big on the right to repair. So all this stuff is going to be very easy to maintain and keep up for you over the years of owning it.
Please support our Stop Burning Stuff Patreon and help us to tackle misinformation about electric vehicles and clean energy.
But there is a big elephant in the room, which is going to be price. Now we'll put down below in the video what this costs, but the goal is to bring the prices down with simpler and better design and also more mass manufacturing. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It can't be affordable if you're making them by the fives, and that's what Electrom is currently doing. But in the future, as they dial down their manufacturing, they're going to be able to get these prices down, and that is what I'm really hoping they're able to accomplish. All right, so that is a really quick first look at the Electrom 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you thought that was cool, you got to watch this video next.